Jubilee just set the internet on fire with this one. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, the video is titled Black Conservatives versus White Liberals. It's got millions of views in a few days. It's got hundreds of thousands of replies and a bunch of reaction videos. Andrew, why is this going so viral right now? We got to break it down as some Asian guys, Andrew, because we are neither white nor black.
All right, so please hit that like button. Check out other episodes of the Hop Hop Boys, guys. We'll go through the top comments, our own thoughts. Basically, in short, I would say the black conservatives stuck by their talking points and their beliefs.
I would say they sounded center-right.
Right. And then the white liberals did admit to certain things about white liberals, but essentially still stood by their points. So nobody was really convinced. But I will say this, the fact that it was black people representing the conservative side this time and white people representing the liberal side, it just made the video hit different.
Well, doesn't it go to show you that visuals are everything? Because like I said, I would say center-right discussions on like black and white issues, it always goes to personal responsibility. And center left or left in general or whatever, it goes to systemic inequality.
Right.
And so it's interesting, Andrew, because just visually, the black people were arguing for personal responsibility and the white people were arguing in favor of systemic inequality.
Now, of course, we understand there are a lot of black conservatives out there, but they just don't get represented, I guess, in media that much. But also, they're pretty popular on YouTube. But anyways, guys, we're going to talk about it. David, what are your quick thoughts as we get into this?
Real quick, guys, I want you guys to like, subscribe, turn on your notifications. Andrew, the discussion got fiery, but you know what else is fiery?
What?
Smala.
Oh!
Get it at smalasauce.com right now. Pre-orders everywhere in North America. Obviously America and Canada as well.
Made with real truffle and Sichuan peppercorn. Very smooth. Umami. Gives you that nice little buzzing, tingling kick at the end. Guys, yeah, it ships everywhere. So check it out, smalasauce.com. That's our chili oil. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to the video, David. What are your quick thoughts about this, man? Because it is interesting. Although I wouldn't say, for me, it's mind-blowing, but it was just nice to see.
You know what it was? I don't think that the points that either side brought up were really that crazy, but it was just interesting to see something that a lot of people don't expect. It's like seeing a Kung Fu Panda or a killer bunny or like a fat marathon runner or just something that you don't expect, right? Obviously, it's true that every group is not a monolith, but I feel like for average people, once a group has like an 80% chance of being something, people just think it's 100%. For your average person who doesn't like make it their job to study things.
Right. I mean, just typically in media, you mostly saw like black people representing the Democrat side, although there, of course, are plenty of black Republicans.
Yeah, it would almost be like somebody seeing like a fish, or I'm sorry, like a bunny attack the hawk. Oh, versus the hawk attack the bunny.
That's just
because that is the let's go off the major archetypes of oppressed class versus oppressor.
It's not what you'd expect.
It's just not what you would expect, right? And yeah, I thought even the white people, like the white liberals, were kind of like, they didn't want to disagree with the black people across from them, even though the black people were conservatives. So they kind of felt like mixed feelings about it.
That was interesting to see because white liberals, like the ones in this video, they had their strong stance, but most of them, minus maybe one guy, felt bad about imposing their views on the black conservatives because I think they were black, and there was that whole like white guilt even within that debate.
Right, but I could tell that they were surprised that they were debating a black person who didn't think the same as them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I could tell that they were like kind of shocked by it in the video. If you guys watch it, like I said, guys, it has millions of views. I do think that white liberals, sometimes they have a weird mix of like not wanting to feel guilt about the past, which is like slavery, which obviously absolutely contributed to creating a lot of modern day inequality, right? And actually like maybe implementing policies to fix it. Like, I feel like they have like, it should like, of course, if everybody wants to fix something, it should all be solutions-based, right? But a lot of people are still caught up in the feeling about it.
Right.
And I think that that's just something that I noticed. Obviously, we're Asian, so it's like different. I don't necessarily understand fully, I guess, what white people are feeling, but I can guess. I would say this. Next thing, Andrew, everybody's experience is different. We all live in different fishbowls. I cannot even live your life. I mean, we could guess, right? Because we've lived a similar life. But as far as people who have lived wildly different lives, how can they be expected to agree on anything?
Yeah, no, and I think that's why any criticism about this discussion, oh, this discussion's not deep enough, oh, it's not doing enough. I'm like, dude, just to see these two sides debate, I think is interesting, and this is good. Like we always say, like you need to have these discussions more in person. You need to talk with people you disagree with, not just on the internet, not just in the comments section. You need to see this play out in real life, and you need to see people have respect for each other while they're disagreeing.
Right. You know what was really interesting to me when I was watching this video too, is that like when people refer to white people, there's only two different types of white people that they're referring to. I feel like rural, patriotic, sort of like Christian Midwest to Southern people.
They like guns. Yeah. Don't take my guns. Don't take my God.
Yeah, this guy's a white guy, right?
Yeah.
And then they're also talking about like upper middle class liberals living in like San Francisco.
Right. Those are, and it's funny because there are a lot of different types of white people.
No, there's more than those two types.
There's many types, yeah.
But that is the two that come to people's mind, right?
Right.
And then I feel like when people talk about black people in American discourse, it's almost like, and by the way, guys, I read a bunch of articles written by black people. These are not my words. It feels like people are just using it as a proxy for poor black people.
Right. That's who when they say it, it feels like that they're more just referring to that segment of it.
Yeah. So I had to do some research, Andrew. The largest groups within the white class and the black class is the middle class.
Oh.
So actually that is the largest slice of distribution. But it is true when it comes to inequality, Andrew, once you get to that second, third, fourth slice, it is very different.
Okay.
Because obviously, I guess amongst black Americans, the second and third, fourth slice is more like moving to lower middle class, poverty, right? And then white people, the second, third slice is moving upwards to like upper middle class or wealthiness.
Okay.
So there, let's be clear here. There absolutely is inequality in America based on group statistics, right? And I think my last quick thought is that like when I watched the video, everybody is not fully agreeing or disagreeing with each other, but they're prioritizing completely different things. Because a lot of people, when they were arguing, the black conservatives and the white liberals, they're like, but that's like a minimal issue. Do you know?
Right, they're arguing almost part of the issue was that they can't agree on what the main issues are. They can't agree on the top 3 issues because they're saying, oh, well, we had welfare, blah, blah, blah. Welfare did this. Oh, no, that didn't have a big impact, or these impacts were minimized by then. It's on our responsibility and things like that. Right.
I'm saying both groups are like kind of deflecting each other by going, yes, but your point doesn't really matter very much.
Right.
So anyway, guys, let's just get into the comments section here. Somebody says, man, I would love to see gay conservatives versus straight liberals on an episode now. Somebody said, what about conservative teachers versus liberal parents? And then somebody said, man, I just hate up these debates. They're just about engagement and views. For example, you have to have black conservatives versus black liberals versus black socialists. That is the only powerful discussion, because when people have not lived even relatively close to the same life, they're not even on the same page to have any sort of productive argument. How much do you think that that's true, that it was just designed to get views? Because these people like didn't grow up the same, so they're not going to convince each other.
I believe Jubilee does have a video called Not All Black People Think the Same, right? Where it's not exactly the debate format as much, but I'm sure they'll do it.
Yeah, I do think that internally within a community, this is a cool conversation starter, but more in-depth. It's like groups that are more similar, they can have more in-depth arguments.
Right.
Moving on to point number 2, Andrew. This guy said Alec was talking about everything that was laughable. He was the only one triggered the whole video, but he was talking about how everybody else was triggered. So basically, everybody hates this guy, Alex. And you know what's interesting? The thing about Alec is, Andrew, he was like the main socialist on the panel.
Right.
So was it his socialist ideas that were pissing like these mainstream conservative and mainstream Democrats off? Or was it just the fact that he was acting like a jackass?
I think it was more his attitude. I think it was more of his attitude.
Yeah.
I think people who watch these videos are generally pretty forgiving and understanding when people are at least respectful.
Yeah, but other people were coming through and saying that socialists always get left out of this conversation because people often assume that socialist is just on the left, but some people are saying now that it deserves its own like end of the triangle. Like it no longer belongs on a linear.
Well, it doesn't seem like we can agree on this either.
Somebody said this conversation is needed. Whether you agree or disagree, it opens up the dialogue.
I agree. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see. Listen, guys, you know, like some people were like talking trash about Jubilee, and it's not just because we know the owner of Jubilee, Andrew. Shout out to Jason Lee. But like, if something gets this many views, it's just a good fire starter for everybody else to do their response videos. Is it true that like, did they pick a lot of people with like normie center left, normie center right opinions? Dude. Yes, but the fact that there was a different visual overlaid and juxtaposed on it made people actually feel more open to the argument, because when somebody has an opinion that you would think they have based on their look, you kind of like shut them out.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we have, I'm sure some college campuses are now inspired by things like Jubilee, where they may have their own political debates amongst students, right? And I think that's really interesting. So hopefully, you know, these videos just inspire people to talk about it more, to make it not as taboo to talk about it, to normalize this conversation, because there's nothing else more that you can do. Because it's really not working when the two sides don't talk to each other.
But there was more criticisms of Jubilee, saying that when everybody gets into these conversations, it literally doesn't, nobody learns anything, because the person who's the most articulate, even if they're wrong, they just win the argument. So it almost becomes a test of like debate skills rather than actual like points.
I mean, you got millions of people watching it. I feel like a lot of people can kind of see through who wins and who doesn't. But really, there may be no winner.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I don't think there has to be in a discussion.
I honestly think, Andrew, and this is something that I felt like was missed in the comments section, they're literally just arguing over priorities and impacts. Like, I feel like a lot of people in America right now are demonizing each other, and they think that their like pie slices on the pie chart are completely different, but it's just about the sizing of each slice. You know what I mean? Like, of course, personal responsibility plays an aspect into it. Of course, systemic inequity plays an aspect into it. But other people are like basically saying like, only care about my slice. And the other side's like, no, I don't care about your slice. Your slice is like minimized even though it exists. I only care about my slice.
Right.
Yeah. Of course, somebody said Alec is a caricature of what conservatives think liberals are. And somebody said, no, he's not a liberal. He's a socialist. And everybody said, yeah, well, both sides, the conservatives and the liberals, have been compromised by capitalism at this point. This person came in and said, in regards to wealth disparities of communities, as a Native American tribal member, I can tell you that sometimes we are not just interested in the same things as a majority culture. For example, our markers of success are culturally different. Western culture says gain the wealth. My culture says build the community and stay with the rituals.
Well, yeah, I mean, coming from an American tribal member, that makes sense, because like their community is like at stake of like, you know, not being around in the near future or something like that. Like that's what they're always worrying about, right? So their concern is about the community versus like everybody else's pursuits are, you know, oftentimes about just money and success.
Right.
But then it is true, and this is where it gets dicey, the people who are often just focused on success, they do certain things, cut certain corners, or they make certain deals that end up affecting the community. And then that can even look racist or ill-intended. You know what I mean?
Or they have behaviors, or they had an upbringing that seemed non-normative to their own community. And then now that they have this success, are they contributing enough? And then, yeah, it's so complicated, guys. It's so gray, and literally like everybody's situation is individual. Anyway, guys, like I said, those were the most interesting comments. I'm not going to actually debate point for point in the video. If you just watch it, like I said, essentially somebody took a center-left position, somebody took a center-right position, and obviously there's one socialist on the left, like far over, almost like a Bernie Sanders type discussion, but kind of acting like a jackhole. Andrew, what are your major takeaways? For me, I would say this. I would say that it would be nice to see, on the mechanical side of just the debate stage, it'd be nice to see Jubilee put some sort of incentive for everybody to agree on like 2 or 3 things at the end of the video.
Right.
Because the video sort of just ends and everybody's like said everything, but nobody feels any different.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good idea. I think what Jubilee could do, and they should like, I don't know if they can have like this delegation, like these be representatives. And of course, this doesn't represent all people, but if you get enough diversity and then you actually give them a mission and you give them a job to come up with something, to agree on something somehow, and then you film that process. And that's like a whole interesting step, right?
Right. You're saying put some sort of like, they had to produce something at the end as a, okay, we could agree on these things.
First you saw them debate, but now watch them work together.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, where do you think Asians fall in all this? Like, you know what I mean? It's funny. It's interesting to see two, I guess, heritage American groups. Like we said, been here 300, 400, 500 years. Obviously a very tumultuous history. We all know what happened. I don't need to say it.
David,
you know what I mean?
I don't know if this is going to sound stereotypical or not about Asians, but I just feel like Asians have a lack of emotion to this issue. Like, partially, that's part of it. Is like the Asian community doesn't feel as on fire about some of these issues. Because,
and the same with Latinos too. To be honest.
Latinos are also a mixed group of people. Some of them are white Hispanics. Some of them are non-white Hispanic.
Some of them are
black.
Afro-Caribbean,
Yeah,
right?
some of them are black. You know what I mean? So that's split. And then Asians are also a pretty big, diverse group. I mean, not as big actually as the other ones, but very diverse as well. So I think like, yeah, man, basically I think as an Asian though, you should watch this. I think as if anybody, I think you can take away from this because you don't usually walk on the street and see these two people debating.
Right.
So watch
it. And like I said, center left, center right. It literally, if you want to watch the whole thing, watch it. But it boils down to just personal responsibility in the current times versus systemic inequality from historical oppression and events that happen in real life. Literally, people are just like weighing one or the other on a scale and saying which one should we focus on now, right? Andrew, in 9th grade, I actually wrote a 20-page paper on affirmative action reform. And this is my general opinion on it, because I know some people are like, oh, Fung Bros, you guys never share your opinion. I think that trying to rectify historical inequalities is really important. But to be honest, I think that on the left side, the implementation, execution, delineation of responsibility, and the resource and human capital management skills are generally kind of bad. So even if you have the right idea of something, or you have the right ideal, the devil's in the details, right? You have to execute it properly, or it ends up like making everybody mad and having like a counterproductive effect.
Now, we'll just end on this, because this is, it doesn't have to be a debate, but I guess even if you execute it properly, is it still going to make everybody happy?
No, there's always going to be flaws and blind spots and everything, Andrew. It's almost like we run any sort of offensive or defensive scheme in the NBA playoffs. You are always giving up something. And now what I'm saying is, how come nobody's ever having this argument about what everybody's giving up? Do you see what I'm saying? Nobody presents their side like a smart consultant. You know how it's like when consultants are brought into companies to pitch an idea, they have to give you 3 options as a company and list out all the major pros and cons of everything. But everybody's almost like a PR marketing rep for their side, saying their side's got the perfect solution with no downsides.
Right. Everybody's just kind of like cheering for their home team.
I mean, to some extent, is the governmental apparatus like doing Uber Eats, Andrew, on a big rusty bicycle, and you've got like 30 packages on the back, and at some point you go, listen, I'm not going to make it. If I try to bring all 30 of these packages on this rusty bicycle, none of them are going anywhere. So you start dumping packages off the back that you deem less important, and then somebody else is like, dude, that's my package.
Right.
Like I said, guys, it's really complicated, man.
All right, everybody, you let us know in the comments down below. We are going to leave a link to the full Jubilee video down below, but thank you so much for watching. Hopefully our discussion on top of their discussion was interesting and helpful. Again, leave your comment down below, hit that like button, and until next time, we out.
Peace.